I wanted to be a doctor because to me, I thought being a doctor was like to be a magician. That's really what I thought it was because I suffered from asthma as a child, and my mom would take me to the hospital and they would give me these medications. Well, now I know they're doing them, but like back then, I didn't know what they were giving me. They were just giving me stuff, and I would feel better, And I just, oh my god, I would see this tall guy with this like this long white coat, you know what I mean, and his stethoscope was like this long, it's like, whoa, this guy looks like a magician. I want to be a magician when I grow up, and eventually later on, as I'm growing up, I'm realizing, oh, they're not magicians, they're healthcare workers.
Welcome to our Crafting Wellness podcast. I am so excited today to introduce you to Gael. He is an emergency medicine doctor.
I'm excited to be with you guys. Honestly, you guys, the company means a lot to me. So I'm just excited to be here with you guys.
We're so excited to have you. Can you kind of just give us a little introduction? Just tell us your name, where you're from, where you are right now, and what you do.
Okay. So my name is Gael Seraphin. I'm a PGY1 at Jacobi Montefiore Einstein, emergency program right now. I was born in Florida on a Tuesday, but the same Friday I was taken to Haiti, and I grew up there until I was like 16, 17. And, you know, I initially didn't have any plan. I had the dream of becoming a doctor, but I didn't have any plan on becoming a doctor until years and years later when I moved here to New York. I currently live in Queens, New York right now, and I've been living here for the past 13 years, and I'm working in the Bronx as an emergency medicine doctor.
Okay, so you left Haiti when you were 16, 17, and you came to New York right away?
Yeah, I came. So my sister was at the time. So I like to say one of the reasons I like to say I was born in Miami, but I'm really a Haitian at heart, was because of my experiences in Haiti. Obviously, I grew up there, obviously, but really, what's really impressive is that I grew up in Haiti between a certain time, between yeah, I mean, I was there all my life, but I feel like the time frame between 1998 to 2005 is what makes me Haitian. And the Haiti was a complete mess at the time, like governmental wise, and just like so many civil wars going on at that time. And I think that experience is what makes me Haitian. But it was getting very, very difficult. It was getting increasingly difficult for me to go to school.
Mm.
Like like, there would be like just different manifestations, and then just war in the streets, and sometimes I would go weeks and weeks and I couldn't go to school. But my sister at the time had already left Haiti. My sister left Haiti like in 1997, 1998, 1999 or so. She was studying law here, and around 2004, 2005, when my mom realized that it was very difficult to send me to school because I was going to school by myself at the time. She had to go to work, so it wasn't that easy for her to take me to school and then go to work. And she realized it was difficult, so she sent me to New York, where my sister already was, because she didn't want to study in New York anymore. She wanted to study law and become a lawyer, and she just came to New York to finish high school. And she was already here at John Jay College in New York City, studying pre-law. And I decided to just come and live with her for a little bit. And we moved in. She was living in Queens in a one-bedroom apartment. And eventually that changed because the super just couldn't handle the place anymore. So she was then put in a house, in a family house, where she had like a room in the house, but she was sharing everything else, the kitchen, the bathroom. And we shared the kitchen and the bathroom with one Egyptian man and three men from Honduras. Well, two from Guatemala, one from Honduras. And I came and I stayed with her, and we just banged it out from there.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that shows some toughness and some resilience there, going to New York so young, and your sister following in your sister's footsteps. Sounds like she set a good example. So I'm sure you're really close with your family.
Yeah, I mean, as far as setting the tone, and making sure that education was important, it started with my uncle. Then it trickled down to my mom, but my sister definitely took the torch. Like, she definitely carried everything, because she was very serious about school, and that really affected me because I felt like I couldn't really sit back Even though I was growing up in Jamaica, Queens at the time, which was a very super dangerous area, but the way she was carrying herself, I couldn't sit back and act like school was not important to me. So even if I wanted to become a slacker or whatever the case is, I couldn't do it because my sister was already setting the trend, and I couldn't sit back and not follow for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, so how did you find your way into medicine then from there? How did tell us a little bit about that journey?
So medicine to me, it's like full of layers. I wanted to be a doctor because to me, I thought being a doctor was like to be a magician. That's really what I thought it was because I suffered from asthma as a child, and my mom would take me to the hospital, and they would give me these medications. Well, now I know they're Duonebs, but like back then, I didn't know what they were giving me. They were just giving me stuff, and I would feel better, And I just, oh my God, I would see this tall guy with this long white coat, you know what I mean? And his stethoscope was like this long, it's like, whoa, this guy looks like a magician. I want to be a magician when I grow up, and eventually later on, as I'm growing up, I'm realizing, oh, they're not magicians, they're healthcare workers. But it still left something with me. What became very much impressive was when I was growing in Haiti, you had all these different types of organizations like, Doctors Without Borders, UNICEF, and all these different big organizations that would come and set up shop in my neighborhood in Haiti. And they would have these long lines of people who couldn't get healthcare otherwise throughout the year. But every time these guys came by, they would just do these long lines around these mobile clinics in the neighborhood. And that left an impression on me. So when I came to New York, I knew that I wanted to be a doctor. I knew that I wanted to get into medicine, but I didn't have a plan. Like I had no clue about the MCATs. I had no clue about, volunteering. I had no clue that I had to take 2 years of biology, 4 years of chemistry, like 1 year of general chemistry well, 2 years of general chemistry, 2 years of organic chemistry, along with biochemistry. I had no clue. I didn't have no clue. I didn't know you had to take physics and you had to take calculus and you have to take English. I didn't have no clue. I went to Queens College, and while I was there, I was pretty much I don't want to say lollygagging around, but I was pretty much going with the flow. Going with the flow. And it's like, I'm just taking classes, but I don't really know how to really apply my semesters the correct way to really become a doctor. Mm-hmm. Then my dad had a heart attack in front of me back in 2012, I would say. Yeah, 2012. He had a heart attack in front of me, and I didn't know what to do. And it just was at home. And we took him to Queens Hospital. And I just remember seeing all these doctors coming outside because they thought he had a stroke, but he was having a heart attack. And I panicked, because I drove him to the hospital myself because he didn't want to wait for the ambulance. So I drove to the hospital. I was like skipping red lights all throughout all throughout Queens. I took like 15 minutes, but I got him there. And I just yelled, my daddy's sick. And everybody, I'm talking about at least like 2 nurses and 3 doctors came out. And they took him from me. And I realized as they were going, these little tags like emergency, emergency, I was seeing on all of their badges. And I was like, you know what? All right, I need to figure out exactly how to become a doctor. So I went back to Queens College, and I started having a conversation with people. I was having a conversation with my math teachers, my biochemistry teachers, and I was just telling them, like, listen, I want to be a doctor, but I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any help. I don't know, nobody in my family is a doctor, and they just pointed me to the right people. And thank God for this lady at Queens College. Her name is Maureen Pierce Anion. She's a counselor there who specifically works with Black students at Queens College. Her name is Maureen Pierce Anion. We call her Miss PA. And she took me under her wings. And then I realized that I was 1 out of 7 Black males out of at least 2,000 students applying each year to go to med school. And she was taking care of us. And she was telling us what to do. She was saying, yeah, you got to get an A in this class. You have to take this class, and you have to get at least a B+, and you have to take this class, and you have to get at least a A-. And she would just lay out things for us, for me specifically, because she gave me one-on-one time. So I'm very grateful to Miss Pierre at Queens College for doing that. So that really is my journey up until the year before I took the MCAT to go to medical school. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like, we talk about this a little bit on the podcast other times that, not to be afraid for people to reach out and ask for help because you've never done something before and you don't know how it works. And if you don't come from a family that has any kind of similar career path as whatever you're pursuing, it can be really challenging to kind of go over all of the obstacles. And then on top of the other challenges, it can be hard. So
Miss PA is the reason why technically I came across you guys, because before Miss PA, I wasn't doing anything. I'll be honest. I wasn't doing any volunteer work. I was just taking classes at Queens College. And and to be frank with you, I didn't do biology or chemistry. I did applied mathematics as my bachelor's. Miss PA was the one who told me, okay, it's okay if you do a major in theater, a major. And so all the medical students out there, it's okay if your major is not a bio major. It's okay if you don't have a bachelor's in bio or chemistry or physics. That's fine. But you must find a way to at least get your, 2 years of biology, 2 years of general chemistry, 2 years of organic chemistry, plus maybe like a year, plus or minus a year of biochemistry or microbiology, whatever you want to call it. And then you take calculus. And then you take, you make sure you have your English literature or whatever literature prerequisites that, because they want to make sure before you go to med school that you're proficient in English. So really as a medical student, so this is my advice to all medical students, you should be involved. Yes, you have to take your classes, you have to do well, but you should be involved in your community. You should be volunteering at a local hospital because medical schools will look at that. You should be participating in outreach communities and just communities that make you look like you're an individual, that you're not staying at home and studying all day, or that you're not participating in helping the world in any kind of way. So with Miss PA, she gave me the opportunity to go look for local hospitals around my neighborhood to find out how I can help as a volunteer. And more importantly, she gave me vouchers to go to medical conferences. Okay, that's the most important thing, because as a medical student, when you go to these medical conferences, you're gonna see all these big shot doctors, and then you're gonna see these residents, and then you're gonna see the medical students. So as a pre-med student, you're gonna be inspired, and you're gonna feel like, okay, you know what, I can make it. If I see this girl, she can make it, I can make it too. And I went to AMEC, which is the annual medical educational conference. It's directed towards minorities, students. It's everybody goes there, but the majority of the people that go there are minority students. It's annually. Because of the pandemic, they haven't been doing it. But when I went there, and I went there at least 3 times during my pre-med, my pre-med years, this is where I met a lot of people and I made a lot of connections that eased my way into medicine, to be fair and frank. And this is where I met MDF, because you guys had a booth there.
Okay. Yes, I see you representing there with their stethoscope.
2013. I don't remember the name of the guy that was there, but you guys had a booth there, MDF. I remember you guys very well, because at that time, I didn't know about you guys at all, actually. I would see people with Littmans and stuff like that, but I never heard of any other stethoscopes, honestly. And this guy was there, and he had these racks and racks of like stethoscopes and boxes, and he just said MDF instruments. And I remember seeing him, and I'm like, hey, like, what the hell is this? This is why I said this specific thing. I'm like, oh, what is that? And he looked at me, he's like, oh, we sell stethoscopes. I was like, oh, okay, how much is it? He's like, oh, it's like $100, 150, depending on what you're looking for. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we specialize in cardiology, and stuff like that. So, a lot of our stethoscopes are geared towards that. And I was like, I don't want to be a cardiologist anyway. And I was like, well, can I get one? And he was like, well, check back with me later. And I remember picking up one, and it was heavy, but heavy, like basically at the bell and the diaphragm. Like, you could feel it. And I just remember putting it on one of my friend's chest and to hear an auscultate. And I was like, whoa, I could really hear everything with this. But I just left it alone. I put it back and I just mind my business. And then 2 days into the conference, when I think everybody was leaving and everything like that, and they had sold a lot. I remember you guys sold a lot of those stethoscopes there, and people liked the product. And I remember passing by, and I was like, "Man, you guys are selling out these stethoscopes. What's going on? It's a lot of stethoscopes I see that are gone now." And then he looked at me. He's like, "Don't worry, I got one for you." And he handed me a stethoscope. I don't have it with me. It should be in my room somewhere. I don't see it now, but it's somewhere in my room. He gave me the stethoscope, and I remember he was like, "You know what? Go out there and be a good medical student." That's what he said to me. And I just couldn't believe that he gave it to me. And that stethoscope cost, I think, about like 150 $153, I remember. And I was like, wow, he gave it to me. I can't believe he did that. And so imagine, I'm a pre-medical student. I'm pre-med. I'm not a medical student yet. So I didn't use that stethoscope until years later, because I wasn't in med school. I was still like trying to get to med school. So it wasn't until 3 years later that I used the stethoscope. And I'll tell you, that stethoscope made me shine on the floors as a medical student. I'll tell you, I caught so many murmurs with that stethoscope, murmurs that make me look like a genius in front of my residents. So MDF, you guys rock. You guys rock.
Oh, well, we absolutely love hearing that. That was probably Darren, probably the owner of the company, just by the sounds of it. But I'll have to check in with. I love hearing that story. It's a great story. We love getting involved in medical missions and donating stethoscopes all the time, and just giving back because of global health and healthcare for all, and just making sure that people have the equipment that they need to facilitate that health. And it can be difficult sometimes in other places around the world who don't have access to the things that they need in order to even do the job that they're trying to do in the first place. So with not only the damage from the earthquake, but now with COVID, and then also just the violence and the politics and like everything going on over there.
Yeah, so there's been many different earthquakes, but the worst one was in 2010.
Yeah. I know I'm sure that at some point you were, when we were talking earlier, we were talking about UNICEF, and you were talking about being inspired when you were a kid and seeing those long lines of people. Is that something you maybe will do in the future? Is maybe go back and volunteer and do anything like that, or have you done work like that?
Yeah. The only reason I haven't done it this year was because I'm still waiting on my seniors to set it up. That's what's good about being a junior. It's just waiting for them to set it up. And as soon as it's set up, I'm going, definitely. There are a couple of people who already went to Jamaica to do ultrasound. I didn't go because I love ultrasound, but I didn't feel like this, I didn't want to go at the time because I was still getting my feet wet as a new doctor, still learning how to do the system and still learning how to manage patients, effectively. So, I didn't go, but what I'm noticing is that people are going more and more now. People are picking back up the old stuff that they were doing before the COVID pandemic.
Absolutely.
And for sure, by next year or by summertime, if anything's going on, I'm definitely going for sure.
Yeah, well, always just let us know if there's any medical missions going on that you get involved with. You can email me or anyone on the team.
You guys, man, you guys are it's very easy to reach out to you guys, and it's so funny because now that I'm a medical doctor, I feel like talking to you guys is just like it's just a rapport. I remember I don't know if I lost the stethoscope. I really don't remember recently. So let me grab this. I think I lost a stethoscope, and then you guys you guys sent me this. I was like complaining on the phone with some random agent, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a stethoscope, blah 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 blah. I lost it. He's like, well, do you have something to carry it on? I was like, no. And she was like, well, I'll send you something so you could carry it so you don't lose it. And she sent me this. And I have multiple stethoscopes. I mean, this one is also MDF as well.
Wow.
This one is MDF stethoscope. So most of my stethoscopes are cardiology stethoscopes because I'm in the ED. It's very noisy. So I need something that's going to give me, when I'm auscultating a patient, I'm going to get a good isolation in my ears, but I'm also going to get great depth, especially with a diaphragm. So I need that. So she sent me this, and I'm so great. You guys are just nice. You guys are
Oh,
very.
I love it. I love hearing that. I'm glad that you get good use out of them. I would love to talk a little bit more about, I don't exactly know where you are in your journey. Are you in residency now, or did you already finish that?
So I'm in residency right now.
So you're a junior in your residency. So is that 4 years? Is
4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, 'cause emergency medicine. So emergency medicine goes two ways. You could do 3 years, or you could do 4 years. Most trauma or county or trauma level one centers, level one trauma centers, or county hospitals are 4 years. Why? Because because they want to give you the option of being able to navigate. Because there are different types of emergency medicine doctors. Some emergency medicine doctors, they don't really deal with trauma. They mostly deal with just medical problems. They deal with heart attacks. They deal with strokes. They deal with seizures. They deal with somebody coming in because they having like very bad pancreatitis, a very bad abdominal infection. That's what they deal with. So they stabilize those patients. And then you have emergency medicine doctors who all they do is deal with gunshot wounds all day long. Gunshot wounds, stab wounds, motor vehicle accidents, bone crushing injuries. So emergency medicine is wide, but it's a mesh of things. And for me specifically, it was important for me to be in a setting where I can do both. And that's why I'm in a 4-year program. So I'm in my first year of my 4-year program. I'm almost done. I'm about to become a second year doctor now soon. Um, but yeah, basically, I, 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 I started medical school in 2017, and I was at Downstate. I was in Brooklyn, Downstate Medical Center, and I trained basically at Kings County and Downstate, which are also 4-year programs. But being in New York, I matched at Jacoby Hospital Center in the Bronx, and I'm happy there because, man, the types of stuff that I deal with every day is just it's just incredible. Bronx is different. It's like the home of the brave, in terms of the violence, in terms of things that goes on there. It's like, last year, my first few months, I was seeing a gunshot cases every day. The violence is very, very concerning over there. Um, but it feels good to be there, especially as a Black doctor, because I get to really be hands on in the presentation of different things. Like, a lot of them are Black teens, Black males that are coming in with like stabbing wounds, gunshot wounds. We
Yeah.
actually recently had a shooting, um, you know, near our hospital in the Bronx, which was very traumatic for a lot of us. So, I'm in a 4-year program, but for all the medical students who are interested in becoming an emergency medical doctor, please understand that you can do 3 years. Okay, you can go to a 3-year program, and you do 3 years. Don't worry. I would say don't worry, because they usually see that in 3-year programs, the trauma experience is not the same. That is true, but you will be adequately prepared if you do 3 years for trauma. But what I do notice is a lot of people who do 3-year programs, they're not really interested in going to county hospitals. They're interested in being like medical emergency, not surgical emergency per se, but medical emergency. So I wanted to do both. So that's why I'm in a 4-year program.
I see. And so kind of talking about going back to the trauma and the gunshot wounds and the stabbing, and um, for you, how do you handle all of that kind of stress that you're yourself probably going through, because you're there to obviously try to save their life or heal them, fix them. And I know that's a lot of pressure, but also just the weight of being a doctor and knowing that sometimes you're going to lose a patient, and you don't always have the easiest days. What do
Yeah.
you do for yourself to kind of like come back to zero, or mentally kind of unwind from that? Or is there anything you can do? And I'd just love to hear kind of what you have to say about that.
I mean, what I'm very good at um, compartmentalizing things in my life. I know that when I go to work, I'm here to do a job, and I'm here to like be be what patients need me to be. They need me to assess them, look at them, figure out what's wrong with them, and make sure they get home safe, or make sure that they go upstairs in the hospital and be treated further. Um, so for me, that's, I'm not saying it's easy, but for me, it's easy for me to understand. I'm not saying it's easy. It's easy for me to understand what my role is in that situation. Um, Actually, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday. It's funny you asking me this. It's hard to be in a situation where somebody can die in front of you. That really stressed me out a lot over the past year, because literally some of these cases are, if I don't act now, this patient will die. If I don't act now, this patient will have a very, very permanent, long lasting issue if I don't do something right now. If I don't think fast, something bad will happen. That's very challenging. But I understand the role. I mean, I picked emergency medicine because that's what I love, and that's what, I just want to be able to patch people, very quickly, see if they need to go home and see if they need to come inside of the hospital. What I really do, I try to keep my life as grounded as possible. So like I'm a bass player, like I play the bass. I also dance, like, like salsa. What they call it? Well, they call it salsa, but me, I call it Cuban music, because salsa is really Cuban music. People have this misunderstanding of what it represents, but it really comes from African roots, and it developed in Cuba, with Black Cubans. Um, and I just try to make sure that a lot of my friends, and especially my friends, they're grounded people. When I get out of the hospital, I disconnect as much as I can. I try not to think about, those bad cases as much as I can. And yes, I have a lot of fun stories as well, being in the emergency room. Some of the funniest stories that you could think of, some of the saddest stories for sure, but man, some of the funniest stories that you could possibly think of.
Oh, I bet. You want to give us a funny one?
You want to hear a funny story?
Tell us your one.
So it was actually recent. This guy comes in, and there's nothing wrong with him. But the thing is, he just want to get checked out. He want to get checked out, and he wants food, right? And so he's coming in, and I went to see him, like, hey, I heard that you're here in the hospital in the ED, but I don't know why you're here. Like, what brings you to the emergency room? And he's like, well, doc, to be honest with you, I just want some food, and I just want to sleep here, and I just want to be left alone. I was like, well, this is a hospital, right? And we're not supposed to be doing this. This is not what we do here. We just want to fix people and send them home. And he's looking at me, well, technically that's what's gonna fix me right now, and that's what's gonna send me home. If you could just give me some hot food and just let me sleep here for a little bit. I was like, you know what? All right, I'll give you 5 hours. I'll give you some food. I'm gonna get some blood work with you. If nothing's wrong with you, you're going home. He looked at me, he smiled, and he went back to bed.
Wow. It's one way to get away from home, I guess.
Was this guy who came in, and he came in. So he came in. He had an accident, and he came in, and we had him in the trauma bay, because we just want to make sure if somebody comes in for an accident, we want to make sure that nothing's wrong with them. If there's no bleeding, we do like a quick ultrasound, make sure there's no internal bleeding or anything like that. We check out, we do a survey to make sure they're protecting their airway, they can talk, they got good pulses all throughout, and they can follow us and everything like that. And when we get into the trauma bay, he he just was looking at us. He's like, hey, why am I here? And I was like, well, you had an accident. Are you aware of this? He's like, yeah, but I told the ambulance that I didn't need to come because I can walk, I can think, I have no issues, nothing's wrong with me, so I don't need to be here. He's like, well, okay, I get it. Can you at least let us check you out, before we send you out, because you had an accident. I was like, did you have any nausea? He's like, no. Do you have any vomiting? No. Any headaches or visual changes? No, no, no. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And then we're like, okay, well, all right. Seems like nothing's wrong with you, but please let us just do some imaging, make sure there's no broken bones, and you can go home. He's like, all right, doc, I'll let you do whatever you want to do, but just so you know, I have a lot of piercings below my belt. So just so you know, no pinky hinky, all right? And all of you nurses, turn around right now before I get undressed. Looking at him like, you know what? This guy's fine. He's gonna be fine. He just got up from the bed. He got undressed. We had to like turn our backs. He's like, no looking. Everybody who tries to look at him, no, let me take off my pants. No looking. You're not gonna look at me. You're not gonna look at me. Let me take off my pants. Give me the gown, and I'll get undressed myself. Nobody's gonna look at me. And then we had to literally walk, turn around, let him get undressed. All right, can we turn now? I was like, yeah, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. So,
Oh my gosh. It sounds like you meet some interesting characters.
oh yeah.
That's really funny. I would love to bring it back a little to you've already given such great advice. Do you have any other advice you would want to give to any students or anybody who's thinking about doing a similar career as you going into emergency medicine?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, it's, as far as emergency medicine goes, I feel like a lot of us, well, I feel like let me speak for myself because I don't know what everybody else is feeling. Um, as far as I'm concerned, um, you know, I chose it. It's a lifestyle. Be prepared for that. It's a way of practicing medicine. Medicine is practiced different ways in different fields. Um, you're gonna have an OBGYN, you're gonna have a surgeon, you're gonna have a nephrologist, or you're gonna have like a hepatologist, you're gonna have a GI doctor. They all practice medicine a certain way. You, as an emergency physician, your job is to figure out what is this patient gonna need. You know, does this patient need to be in the hospital? That's really your job. That's your job, essentially. Does this patient need to be here, right? And you must be able to really analyze that and make a good decision based on that, because the last thing you want is to send somebody home who needed to be in a hospital and then something bad happens to them and it falls back on you. That's number one. Number two, you must be able to like juggle medical issues versus surgical issues, because you got to meet the best of both worlds, and that's important to know that you're going to deal with both of these circumstances a lot. What I would suggest for any medical student is pick an actual county hospital to volunteer at. Don't volunteer in a clinic. I understand it's very easy. You could volunteer in a clinic, but that's like should be on your side stuff. Like a volunteer in a county hospital where you're gonna see gunshots, where you're gonna see people coming in with stab wounds. You're gonna see people coming in with stab wounds to the face. The other day I saw this guy cut up from, ear to ear. And thank God I had seen that before, because I felt like if that was my first time seeing this, I don't think I would be able to take care of this guy. But I had been seeing that before. I volunteered at Jamaica Hospital before, and I've seen so many different things there that by the time I got to Jacoby, or even by the time I got to Kings County, and now I'm at Jacoby, I feel like I can handle these like very gruesome looking presentations.
Mhm.
And also at the same time, be ready for the other stuff, like people vomiting on you, patients not wanting you to take care of them, patients pushing you, patients getting very, very agitated, patients coming in on all types of drugs and toxins that you don't know about, and they're aggressive, and they're aggressive and they could die on you because those drugs can kill them. A lot of, especially in the Bronx, a lot of patients do heroin, a lot of them do synthetic marijuana, a lot of them do all types of drugs that can cause them to have a heart attack or cause them to have a stroke. And you must be ready to see these things. I would suggest you really volunteer in a county setting if you want to be an emergency physician. So at least you've seen some of the most serious and yeah, some of the most serious things that you can come across as a doctor.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. I have a curious question, just hearing you talk about things. Do you ever run across people who kind of are forced into the emergency room because either by ambulance or something like that, and are worried about the cost and the price of what their visit is going to be if they don't have health insurance and stuff like that? Does that seem to be kind of an issue there where you are?
So the thing is, as an emergency, as in like one of the policies of the emergency room is we don't refuse anybody, regardless of their insurance. status, or regardless if they're able to pay or not. Now, I don't know what really goes on with billing afterwards, but
Mhm.
I can assure you, there's a lot of people who come to the emergency room who do not have any type of income. They're homeless. They're not, they don't have. I know they probably don't have a penny to their name. I know that for a fact, and we still take them on. We still treat them. We still, um, you know, I've never seen I've never seen somebody get worried that we're gonna treat them and we're gonna build them. I've never seen that. I haven't had that experience myself. But what I can say is we've had a lot of homeless people, a lot of people who do not, or who do not have the money to have the proper care in an emergency setting, and we still take care of them. It doesn't matter. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just important that people know that, because you don't want someone not going to get the help that they need because they're worried but that they can't pay for it. If you have an emergency and you need to go to the emergency room, please go to the emergency room, because I know people in the past, I've known people who worry about the cost of things and then they don't go and they get really sick. Sometimes, it could have been prevented if they had gone sooner. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up. But I also wonder,
that's
the other,
extremely.
yeah, I wanted to ask you too, hours. Like, do you go from working day shifts to night shifts? Are you primarily in one or the other? Or does it kind of just, is it change week to week?
It was back and forth. So all this week I was working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. all this week, and starting Sunday night I'm gonna work from 8 a.m. from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So they keep me going back and forth. That's tough. That's one of the toughest things, but I think that's what happens during residency. When you become an attending after your residency, then you could definitely make a decision on what, because that's where you start to talk about contracts. I know different attendings, they only work nighttime because they're not interested in working daytime. They only want to work at night.
Mhm.
There are attendings that I've never seen work during the night. They're not here during the night. There are attendings who do not work during the weekends. Um, Depending on the type of contract that you do, um, you can decide. But as a resident, you don't get to decide because your seniors are doing the actual schedule. So me, like especially me, oh my God, this is like so tough. But I usually work from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And sometimes it just goes back and forth. And sometimes I'll go weeks where I only work days, and then I'll go weeks where I only work nights. And but especially this week that just passed, I'm going back and forth. Last week I was nights. Then this week that just passed, I was days. And then this week, starting Sunday, I'm gonna be nights again. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah, as a resident, it's that's something that you have to be prepared for.
Yeah, do you have any tips or tricks or anything to get you through that? Are you relying on heavily on coffee, or how are you
Oh,
acclimating your body through those
you get
drastic changes?
you get used to it. You get used to it because you start to adjust. Um, the first time, what I would say is the first time I was drinking a lot of coffee to stay up at night. But then, depending on where you are, things get so busy that it's okay. Things become so busy. I mean, it's the emergency room. You're probably gonna have only but so many shifts where nothing is going on. I promise you, something is always going on in the ED. Trust me. Um, so at some point you adjust, but honestly, I'll be honest. Like when I work nights, my days are destroyed. Basically, I work the whole night and I sleep the whole day. Forget about it. As opposed to when I'm working during the day, I can work from 8 to 8. And then at 8 p.m., I don't really go home. I can go somewhere else, have a drink, meet some friends, and, maybe even go see a show or whatever the case is in the city. And then I go home and get ready to, start back again in the morning. But during nighttime, forget about it. I work from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And from 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m., I'm sleeping.
Yeah, I imagine that's really challenging, but sounds like, yeah, you're getting through it and you're not too far away. So just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think have been some of your biggest challenges, either as a resident or pursuing medicine, or just in general while you've been kind of on this path? What would you say your biggest challenges have been?
So before I became pre-med, where I was growing up, I grew up in Queens, and I didn't grow up around a lot of you know, like I grew up in a very, very tough neighborhood. Um, it was a good neighborhood, but it was like, some of the influences around there was just not ideal. So getting to pre-med, to become a pre-med student, was a little bit challenging in terms of, I went to Hillcrest High School, and the the statistics are not that good for Black males, to make it to college. I think it was like 18% to even, I think only 18% made it out of the 2 years, the two first years in college, because, it was like mostly college dropouts. Um, so one challenge academically was very challenging, especially because you're learning so much new information. I mean, that's what medicine is all about. You're learning bio, you're learning chemistry, and you're learning anatomy and physiology, and you're trying to find a way to really synthesize all of these things together, and that's kind of challenging. That was challenging for me, and I had to adjust myself a lot to really figure out how to take all of these informations and synthesize them in a way where it makes sense and makes sense clinically. Because, as a doctor, I'm not a PhD doctor, I'm an MD doctor. So I need to figure out how this is going to affect my patient. And I need to figure out how I'm going to manage this for an actual human being, not theoretical issue. So that was a challenge for me. Second challenge, I think, uh, for me, especially on this journey, was just, not having proper mentors. I think if you don't have the proper mentors, you're not going to make it far. It wasn't until I got the actual, until I got Miss PA, Maureen Pearsanian from Queens College, that's when I started having like a clear guidance into like, okay, you know what? All right, this lady's telling me what to do. I'm going to trust her, and I'm going to do what she tells me to do. And I obviously I became a doctor. Another challenge right now for me is working long hours and still being able to have a life. That's challenging. But it's very doable, especially in emergency medicine, because you're going to work like 5 days out of 7. You're going to have at least like, you're going to have 2 days off, quote unquote, where you can figure out how to maximize your time outside of the hospital. It's a challenge, but you should be able to do it. And also, one of the biggest challenge, is not changing. You know, not I, I I one of the promises that I made to myself is I'm not gonna change, in terms of where I come from, the way I see the world, and the way I'm supposed to represent my family, supposed to represent my people. When I say my people, I have my own definition of that. It's not like the traditional, oh yeah, we're black, and I mean, like, no, my people, and that's personal to me, and I think everybody that would be personal to them as well. But there are things that I'm out here fighting for. There are, cultural things that are important to me. There are societal things that are important to me. And becoming a doctor could sideline you from that. It could sidetrack you from that. It could throw you off of that. And like, even look what I'm wearing today. I'm wearing my Central Park Five T-shirt here because, societal justice is important to me. Making sure young Black males, stay out of the prison, justice system is important to me. There are multiple things that are important to me, and you could be so focused in becoming a great doctor, which is important. It's important to become a great doctor, but I can't let it take me away from some other stuff that are also important to me in my life, because you have to be multidimensional. You can't be a flat individual. You have to be a well-rounded person, and yeah, I have to make sure that I don't forget some of these things about myself.
Oh, that's so beautifully said. Yeah, I think it's really important that with anything that you're pursuing, that it doesn't become your whole life. It's a part of your life, but it can't be your all of your life. We have to live in between. You have to make a life in between the pursuit of the dream, the pursuit of becoming doctor, because it does take a lot of your time. It takes a lot of your time while you're there. It probably takes a lot of your brain power when you're not there. And so it's definitely challenging, but I think if you realize that it doesn't always have to be like that, and at some point you do have some sort of control a little bit, hopefully over your schedule, that you can kind of find that balance that's really important for anything that you're doing.
Yeah. It took something to happen to me. It took something, and what happened to me, unfortunately, was my dad having a heart attack in front of me, and that was one of my biggest drivers. And I think what I would encourage medical students who will read this, hear this podcast is that you, it's okay if you want to be a doctor. You don't necessarily have to have a tragic reason to become a doctor. Okay, is what I'm saying. But do find something, do find something that will solidify your emotions on wanting to do it. You know, because because I've noticed many people become doctors and they quit after a year or two. Actually, somebody I know quit like a couple of months after becoming a doctor, um, because they realized this was not for them. And that's one of the worst ways to find out, right? When you actually become a doctor, that's when you realize, okay, I don't want to be a doctor. That's because they probably didn't analyze exactly why they wanted to be a doctor. I think for a lot of us, we do it because medicine is our thing. We really feel like we like dealing with people's problems in a scientific way. We like to figure out what's going on with their pancreas. We like to figure out what's going on with their heart. We like to figure out what's going on with their kidneys. That's important to us. We love it. It's not like we're just sitting here and just like, oh, we're just gonna become a doctor. I'm gonna make a lot of money, and no, that's not enough. Um, so find a good reason why you want to do it. Um, and and when you do find a good reason, whatever you feel like is putting urgency in you doing it, make sure you do it right away. The last thing you want to do is just letting your years blow by, and you're not working on becoming what you're supposed to become. And also, don't be afraid if you feel like this is not for you. If you feel like medicine is not for you, that's okay. A lot of people go to medical school because their parents wanted them to go to medical school. They're trying to follow a family legacy, and I understand that. That's very much understandable. But if you don't feel like it's for you, it's okay to not do it. Don't feel ashamed. Don't let anybody push you into this. It's okay if you don't think that this is for you. And be like me. What I mean by that is, um, like me, I'm an avid salsa. I'm actually a DJ. I'm a salsa DJ. Um, I play in New York City. I play at multiple places. I play at Sahadis Industry City. I play with Chino Pons. You guys can look up these guys. They're great bands. Cuarteto Guataca. They're great bands in New York City that play salsa. I don't like to call it salsa, but I know that's the big name for it. It's really música cubana. And keep yourself very diversified. Me, I speak 4 languages, but I find
Wow. Okay, wait. 4 languages. What do you speak? I want to hear. What's
um,
your
French is my first language, because I grew up in Haiti and because we were colonized by the French. And, that's one of the reasons why it's my first language, because when I started to go to school, I spoke French. And I speak Creole, which is the native language of Haiti, Creole. And then when I came to America, when I came to New York, like I told you, I lived in a family house with my sister. We lived in one bedroom, but we were sharing the house with like 3 guys. Two was from Honduras and one was from Guatemala. So I learned how to speak Spanish with them, um, uh, and obviously English. So you know, I keep myself very diversified in terms of that. I go out with some of my friends. A lot of my friends, they're very surprised. Like one of my best friends is from Colombia, and one of my best friends is from Colombia, and another best friend of mine is from Cuba, and we speak in Spanish all the time. And I just like hanging out with these guys because they're not doctors, so I feel very comfortable having like a life outside of medicine with them, and playing the bass, and having fun with them is like something that is very important to me. It helps me stay alive. It helps me stay very much active in the city apart from medicine. So do that. Don't be boxed in. Please don't be boxed in.
I love it. I know. I saw you are so passionate. It's one thing I really, really admire and love about you is you can tell that you're full of life and full of passion, and that you go for it, and you live your life and enjoy it. And I think that's great, great advice. 4 languages. Wow. you, you're pretty amazing. You play the bass, you DJ, you dance, you're a doctor, you speak 4 languages. I'm sure there's a million other things I don't know. You're probably a 5-star chef. I mean, who knows? Um, but it's great though. I mean, it's really important for people, you know, in anything that you do, if you become super focused, hyper focused on something, then you really are only doing yourself a disservice, because there's all these other facets to you that you're never really going to get to explore. Like maybe you're really good at learning languages. Maybe you're really good at math. Maybe you're really good at dancing or singing or writing poetry or whatever. But if you never take the time to actually discover other parts of yourself, then that's just going to go undiscovered, and you're not going to be the full version of you that you should be. And also, 4 languages, I still can't get over it, but it has to be great for being a doctor too in the Bronx,
Yeah, it is.
being
It
able
is.
to communicate.
I mean, in the Bronx, they mostly speak Spanish. They're Spanish speaking, and so that's very important to for me to be able to speak with them. You know, like some patients, they don't talk to me in English. They can't speak English. They only speak Spanish. So I have to talk with them like that. But the interesting thing is, I taught math before medical school. I was teaching math at Queens College. I was a math teacher for
Yeah,
3 years.
that doesn't surprise me because you were talking about all the math you
I did
studied in college.
mathematics. And while I was waiting to take my MCATs, I started working as a math adjunct at Queens College. So yeah, I don't think, one I guess one of my biggest advice I would give to medical students or people who want to go into medicine, you don't need to be a bio major. You don't need to be a chemistry major. You don't need to be a physics major. Please get rid of that notion. If anything, medical schools are looking for well-rounded individuals. Before, everybody thought, oh no, I have to be super smart. I have to be a nerd in biology. I have to be a nerd in chemistry. That's the reason they're going to accept me. That is false. That is false. Be yourself. If you love music, you can be a music major and still go to med school. If you love philosophy, you could still be a philosophy major and go to med school. That is fine. They're gonna take you as long as you have good grades in your biologies, your chemistries. These are just classes that you have to take. You just have to take those classes and be able to endorse it to the medical school and say, hey, I took these courses. Can I apply here? And I have my bachelor's in physics, or I have my bachelor's in philosophy, or I have my bachelor's in acting. That's okay. There was a girl who was in my medical school class, who was an actress before going to med school.
Mhm.
Graduated. She's doing family medicine now somewhere. I don't remember where, but she was an actress before. So you don't have to be a biologist before you go to med school. Please get rid of that notion. That is not the purpose here. The purpose is to be an individual who can understand science, okay, put it put its practicality into real life and know how to deal with people. And I'll guarantee you, most of my med school teachers, that's what they were looking for in us. They were looking for, okay, can you actually educate a patient into making them take the right medication? Can you explain to them what's going on in their bodies, why they're in poor health? Can you do this? It's not about sitting here and describing the Krebs cycle to a patient. Like, you're not gonna do that. It's not about sitting here and explaining to the patient why their creatinine levels, what the nephrons are doing in the kidneys that's causing the creatinine levels to go up. If anything, you're going to explain to them that, okay, your kidney is not functioning well. You need to do this or you need to do that. Oh, your blood glucose level is high because you're not eating well, or you're not taking your insulin, or you're not taking your medication properly. You're not going to sit here and explain to them exactly what's going on in your body or in their body. That's your job. Your job is to know what's going on with them, and then you let them know what they're supposed to do to make sure that they stay healthy. So please forget about the notion that you have to be a scientist for you to go to med school. Okay.
Oh, it's so well said. I'm really glad you brought that up because I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And I talked to a lot of people on these podcasts and I had no idea that you didn't have to major in those things to go to med school. So Well, it sounds like you are a great doctor and you're going to continue to be one. So I'm really excited to see and check in with you, hopefully maybe in a year or so, or check in and see how things are going with you. But I would love for you to just, for everyone listening and watching, if they want to reach out to you, how they can find you, listen to your music, DJing, anything, any social media handles or any kind of spot you want to send people to, you can verbally say it. And then I will also be linking it down in the video for people to click.
Especially medical students, like my page is, I think my page is like heavy on music, but honestly, anybody can reach out to me there. Because if you go to my Instagram is Gagou_Grayson. It's GAGOU_Grayson, GRAYSON. And basically, it's just my Instagram is all about math, medicine, and music. Right now, I'm mostly focused on medicine and music. So if you want to reach out to me, ask me for any advice, please go to my Instagram and just, hit me up there. I don't mind, talking to anybody who like, I'm busy, but at the same time, if I have some downtime and I'm on my Instagram, I never shun people away. I never act superstar on anybody. So if you text me on Instagram, for sure. And you can see me play the bass as well. I'm not gonna play the bass right now, but I have so many videos coming. So, and especially if you're in New York City, please check me out. I'm very much approachable. I'm reachable. You can reach out to me. You can meet me. There's always some events that I'm gonna be a part of, and you can always come there and meet me without any issues. So, Gagou_Grayson is my Instagram handle.
Yes, you have to check it out. I've seen it from with my own eyes. It's awesome. Multifaceted man over here, jack of all trades. So yeah, great. Well, it was so wonderful having you on our podcast. Thank you so much for joining today. It's been a real pleasure.
MDF, you guys are great. You guys are amazing. Listen, I'm wearing it. Listen, this is what I use. So, you guys are great. I love having a piece of you guys with me when I'm in the emergency room. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for all that you do.